ladies and gentlemen, Carey Moore.
I moved into Orange Mound 12 years ago. I think a person moves into a neighborhood to be absorbed and belong, or to bring change. I wanted to belong, but I didn't. I'm white, and Orange Mound is very black. And to bring change takes time and money, and I am no spring chicken. And I know that my money could not go far enough to make a big change. And so I looked around and saw some of you all, and it appeared to me that you all looked the other way because you didn't think I had any staying power at all. And honestly, I didn't know that I did either. But I was going to dig in, and I was going to see maybe what time would bring. So I sort of bought property at an intersection that seemed to be very busy. And I thought some of you all would come and visit. But you didn't. And those that did come to the door were looking for a handout and some help with a utility bill. And I really didn't feel like I was getting further along as I hoped. And my time was running out. My runway was shortening. And a friend called me on Christmas Eve and said, "You need to buy my tea company." And I don't drink tea. I find tea is very temperamental. It's hard to, I'm supposed to get a little tea picture up here. There it is. It takes time. And there is a technique. And if you do it right, it's going to be a special recipe. The temperature of the water has to be exactly right. The length of the steep has to be just so. And I'm always in a hurry. And so I think the reason a lot of people don't drink tea is they don't like the fuss and bother. And around here, if they do make the tea, they've added so much sugar, it's not tea anymore. And so what I found was that tea, if it's done right, is something that you ought to invite friends in for. And you should take your time and sip it, or read a good book, a long book with some interest in it. And there was a book that I picked up that was written by Molly Crosby. And she called her book The Great American Plague. And it's all about Memphis. The yellow fever epidemic in the late 1870s absolutely destroyed Memphis. We were a small town, but we had a charter. In 1878, the worst iteration of that disease hit like gangbusters. And 5,150 people died. But of that, only a fifth were African Americans. And they were the ones that could help and take care of the sick and dying, because 25,000 white rich people got out of town, and they never came back. And during that time, with the city's population depressed, Memphis lost its charter. There was no infrastructure. There was no government protection. The African Americans became part of the police, the volunteer police department, without pay. And so they hung on, your forebears hung on for 10 years until a man, and his name was Meacham. You've heard this story, I know. He was a white man. And he bought up a big plot of land from the Dedrick plantation and sold 982 plots only to African Americans. And with that, Orange Mound began. And it grew. And it was wonderful. And then a very rich black man named Robert Church invested here. He helped Memphis get its charter back by buying municipal bonds. And then he built a playground and a park and a big assembly hall right here in Orange Mound. And so word got out all over town, all over the country, that Orange Mound was a safe place for African Americans and blacks. And so there was a surge. There were people migrating from all over the country to come here and make Orange Mound their home. And they belonged, and they felt seen and heard. And that's the Orange Mound that everybody has still been dreaming about, because that's the Orange Mound we want to give back. The yellow fever epidemic hit so hard, and it was just a mosquito that did all that. But there were so many good years. There were 40 years of Orange Mound doing all the things that these pictures in the hallway have shown. Martin Luther King Jr. came here, knew Miss Daisy's chitlins, her wonderful chicken and dumplings. He knew about the Cozy Corner. He got his hair cut here at a local barber. He moved around with the mobilizers, who were sort of his protection team. And Orange Mound was so proud to have him here. And he inspired, and he encouraged, and he continued to follow the dream that you all already had. You were the model of his story. And then he died. And just like the yellow fever epidemic, the city's population dropped. Orange Mound turned on fire. 60% of the families that had been here left. And here we were again, looking for the fumes that once had been. It was a sad, sad time. Commerce disappeared, people disappeared, the schools got deflated. There was no real robust spirit here. Houses got all boarded up, and families kind of fell apart, those that stayed. And I know we're all concerned about the lack of men around here. So when I started finding out who lived in my neighborhood, it was all single moms. And they didn't have a hope or a prayer. I opened my door, and they brought me cups of woe, cups of sorrow, full of tears. Their stories, they just poured the tea out on me, and I just lapped it up. It was so sad to see women who were trying to hold their borders and take care of their children, and without any strength other than prayer and a few people that wanted to help them along. We love those women. Their cups became our little porcelain cups, and we would encourage them to share their little chips and cracks with us, because we all had chips and cracks. So we built all these little chandeliers over there at that property, and we look at it as if it's an emblem of us, because there's just one source of light, and we're all different, but together we're all really quite beautiful. The interesting thing is that there's a lot of similarity in tea. All tea comes from the same bush: black, white, rooibos, green teas, oolong teas. It's the same bush. And we're all the same too. It takes 30 to 50 years for a tea bush to get mature. It took me that long for sure. It is treated differently to get the different properties that you want in the final taste. It depends on the soil, it depends on the environment, it depends on the amount of encouragement that maybe the weather brought. Well, it's the same with us. And if we don't have all the same properties in our maturation, we're going to come up with something different every time. But it's the same bush. The women are stronger. We have found that a woman is a lot like a tea bag. You don't know what's in it until you put her in hot water. But the women, we've got are sturdy. And I don't know if it's the soil, the air, or the heritage of this wonderful city, this wonderful Orange Mound, but our women are amazingly courageous. They're beautiful inside and out. What I lament is that a mosquito and an assassin's bullet, both very small, turned this city around twice. And now, according to a census by Smart City, Memphis, back in February, 25,000 people have left again. And I think it might have a lot to do with kids stealing cars and guns in their pockets. And so what we're trying to do is make those moms know where their kids are. And so we rock on the porch right over there at the house, we call it the house, and we share ideas about how to raise those kids and grandkids. And we share recipes. And we talk about solutions for rashes on the body and what the best doctor is in town for that particular ill. And do you know where your kids are? And do you know your neighbor's kids' names? And do you know what they planted in their garden? And are you gonna be a neighbor? Because it's not gonna be the police department or this wonderful new idea with the public school system. It's not gonna be the elimination of drugs, it's gonna be the moms, because they're the ones that are still here. And they're the ones that are going to turn it around, because when they came to me, they didn't feel like they belonged at all. But I didn't belong either. And so now they're making the change. And what I want you to do is come join us over there at our intersection. We call it our little micro mound, because we are making progress. And it's yard by yard, it's block by block, it's shoulder by shoulder. And if you want to come join us, we'll welcome you in, or invite us and we'll come help you in your neighborhood. And we'll bring the tea. Thank you.